Why is alcohol so very irresistible when we are stressed? And does alcohol even help our stress anyway? We're going to talk about all of this and more in today's episode of the Dr. Brooke Scheller Show. If you've ever found yourself whispering or shouting, "I need a drink," you're not alone. I can think back to many a moment in my past at the end of a long, annoying work day when my blood sugar is low and my stress is high. And what I really need, what my body really needs, is some deep breaths and a yoga class and something to eat. But my body defaults to its classic move, I need a drink. The reality is that the drink helped me exhale from the day. It helped my shoulders drop, it helped to numb the tension of the stress of the day, and it eased my racing and anxious minds and thoughts of tomorrow's stress. And you might be able to relate. And if so, you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you're here. This is what we're going to be talking about today because this is a very common experience. It is one that I personally have experienced and has changed so much as I removed alcohol from my life. And I want to share more about this with you today because we'll talk about the actual mechanisms behind why alcohol is helping us feel like it's relieving our stress, how it's actually making our stress worse, but then how we can use natural tools and supplementation to actually mimic the relaxation effects of alcohol so that you can have that relaxation feeling without having a drink. So let's get into it. Now, alcohol does its job by influencing our brain's neurotransmitters. One of the ways that it influences these neurotransmitters is by increasing GABA. GABA is our body's relaxing neurotransmitter. This is what I call the shoulder drop neurotransmitter. It's the one we get when we feel like after we take a drink that we get that sigh of relief that our shoulders can drop. And it helps us to feel less anxiety, less inhibition, and more muscle relaxation. Alcohol also temporarily decreases or inhibits glutamate. Glutamate is one of our body's excitatory neurotransmitters. Think of it as the gas in our body, and when we inhibit glutamate, we're basically taking our foot off the gas. So this ultimately slows our thinking, our judgment, and this is also what leads to those memory gaps that we can often get, that blackout or that brownout. Now, I also want to talk about dopamine and serotonin. These are two of our body's feel-good neurotransmitters, and they are both influenced by alcohol as well. Now, alcohol indirectly influences dopamine and causes an increase in dopamine that is associated with that feeling of pleasure or reward. It also enforces the "this feels good" feeling. Let's do it again. And it trains our brain that we can come back to this time and time again in order to feel better, to get some of that support and that stress relief. And alcohol can also increase serotonin signaling. This will enhance mood temporarily, but over time, the more that we drink can cause depleted serotonin signaling, lower sensitivity of serotonin receptors, and over time, it makes our anxiety, our irritability, and our mood worse. But does alcohol actually help our stress? You might be thinking that yes, we just talked about the ways that alcohol helps us feel relaxed, it helps us feel like we unwind, and therefore it must have a positive influence on stress, right? Not so fast. Alcohol actually drives our cortisol levels up, cortisol being our stress hormone, meaning that it's actually making stress worse over time. Research shows that short-term alcohol use can spike cortisol levels, and that chronic alcohol use shows significantly higher cortisol levels over those who don't drink. In comparison, heavy drinkers show higher cortisol levels than those who are light drinkers. And one cross-sectional study in men showed a correlation between alcohol and higher salivary cortisol levels, showing about a 3% cortisol increase per unit of alcohol per week. That means that each drink is increasing our cortisol by 3%. That's one thing to consider if we're having one drink or two drinks, and it's very different for someone who might be having 10 drinks per week. And another really important stat to note is that it can take up to 7 days after drinking for cortisol to return to baseline, especially with higher levels of drinking. And some researchers suggest that cortisol and stress responses remain blunted for even weeks or months. So I like to think about the systems that are at play and how we can influence them using natural tools to help overcome cravings, to simulate these feelings of relaxation without the harms of alcohol. So here are some of the tools that I like to use. I love recommending a supplement called L-theanine. L-theanine is an amino acid that helps to boost the production of GABA naturally. Remember, GABA is our body's relaxing neurotransmitter, so it's going to help simulate those feelings of relief and relaxation. I also really like L-theanine for people who have more of an anxiety-driven craving to drink or craving to check out. So if you feel like you get that kind of anxious tendency, L-theanine can be really helpful for that. Now, GABA can be supplemented directly, but it is a little bit controversial on if it works for everyone. So I like to suggest L-theanine to really bypass that process and get the effect right away. I am also a fan of using another amino acid called L-glutamine. L-glutamine helps with stabilizing glucose and warding off cravings. It helps us experience fewer moments of that I need something feeling, and it helps with GABA and glutamate balance. Now, I know you've heard about magnesium and the benefits of magnesium for relief and relaxation, but magnesium actually blocks the NMDA receptors, helping to prevent overstimulation from glutamate. So that excitatory neurotransmitter that feels like pressing on the gas, magnesium actually helps to prevent that from going off the rails. So taking something like a magnesium glycinate, especially in the afternoon or evening, can really help us reset and unwind. There are also other important nutrients to consider. Some of our B vitamins, especially vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and folate. Omega-3 fatty acids can be very beneficial, and zinc, especially if you're low in zinc. You want to make sure that zinc levels are up to par because we need zinc for the production of these neurotransmitters. You can also support cortisol directly using adaptogens like rhodiola and ashwagandha. I like to use rhodiola in the morning during times where we're looking for more stimulation or more energy. It can help with focus, whereas ashwagandha is more of a relaxing adaptogen that is better for us to introduce at night or prior to sleep. Now, I also want to suggest finding support, finding community, finding people that you can use as your guides to help you learn more about how to de-stress without alcohol. Now, that can be communities like AA or Smart Recovery. It can also be wellness groups or gym classes or other people in your life who look at stress in a different way. This will help you break some of those patterns of going out to happy hour after a long day or turning to that bottle of wine. Now, here's the thing. To some degree, you have control over the stress in your life, even when you feel like you don't. So what I want you to do is evaluate some of the places where stress is showing up in your life and where you might be able to make some changes or decisions that can ease your stress and take some of the load off of your plate. It can feel really odd to change your relationship to stress and how you view it and how you handle it, but this is a really great step in supporting your body and your nervous system for recovery. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe on Substack or YouTube, and I'll see you back here next week for the next episode of the Dr. Brooke Scheller Show.